The toughest skill to have is to collaborate. I see that we have a lot of training programs in lots of subjects, but not in collaboration. The gaps are primarily in three areas. The first one is funding that everybody talks about. The second gap that I see is on the expertise. Third one is
Hello and welcome to Biologics Platform Conversations, where we bring the key voices who are building the future of India in biopharma and beyond. And I'm Rohini Kanbarkar, and today I am more than pleased to be joined by Dr. Ravikrishna Chebolu, sir, distinguished scientist and head of CSIR Innovation Complex, Mumbai, under the Ministry of Science and Technology. Dr. Chebolu has over 24 years of experience spanning in the pharmaceutical R&D and business leadership and also global collaborations. His career includes the leadership roles at Argen, Laurus Labs, Agilian Technologies, West Pharmaceuticals, and Orofens, covering the full pharma value chain from drug discovery to the commercial manufacturing and the analytical sciences. And also in 2025, he joined the CSIR, where he now leads the initiatives to support startups, MSMEs, and the translation of science innovation into the real world impact. So it's a pleasure to welcome you here on the podcast, sir.
pleasure to be here, Rohini. It's such a wonderful opportunity to be at this conference, which really is unique in many ways. It is bringing together the experts from the academia, from industry, from regulatory bodies, and also the investors. And I've been to very few conferences, I can say, that has this kind of mix. So pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, sir. Before we jump into the more of scientific questions, I would want to know how your journey has been so far in this domain.
In terms of moving from industry to
I would say being a student and then coming to this position, transitioning from academia, industry, and everything.
Okay. So it's a very interesting journey, and a journey, more importantly, I've enjoyed every bit. And every time, I think this is probably more for the students and the young researchers, is that always it's important to do what you feel that you will add more value at any given point of time. So after finishing my PhD in chemistry, where I got a CSIR fellowship, and today I am back in CSIR, and I went abroad for my postdoctoral in the US at Rutgers and UConn, and then worked in the US as a process chemist for 4 years. And 2004, I returned to India with my family and started my journey here. And I worked for the three major segments of Indian Pharma, the CRO, CDMO industry.
Yes.
In fact, back in 2004-5, it was just starting, and I had the tremendous opportunity to be part of that industry growth, from step one. And then I worked for Jubilant, Aragen, and most recently Eurofins, all the major CROs, CDMOs. And then I worked for multinationals such as Agilent Technologies and West Pharmaceuticals. I was the country general manager at West Pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
And then the third segment was on the generic side, again CDMO side, which is Laurus Labs. So at each step, I made a conscious decision to take a challenge, move into being a hardcore scientist.
Yes.
I stepped into initially techno-commercial role and then pure play commercial role. So from doing experiments in the lab, I at some point, most of the job I was doing was doing sales reviews in a boardroom. So it's quite a transformation, but I enjoyed every single bit of it. Now the transition into government and being part of a prestigious institution like CSIR, has distributed.
That's a wonderful journey, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so, as you have led the large-scale CDMO's operations for years now, as you mentioned already. So, what has inspired your transition into these leading innovation infrastructure through CSIR, I would say?
It's a very good question, I must say, and it really points to my passion. So, after sort of doing whatever I wanted to do in industry and experience the various sectors, my long-term desire has always been that I wanted to be part of the government initiatives
Oh, okay.
and to make a difference and give it back. Since I got PhD in chemistry from University of Hyderabad, this country, I always felt that I need to give it back, in some form or other. I always believe that the individual contribution may be at a very, very low level. It may be what I'll do in my current job, maybe contributing to point not what percent, but still it is something.
Yes.
That is what I wanted to, rather than being outside and saying that the government should do this or CSIR should do this and all that. Just join the bandwagon and try to do something. So that's what prompted me.
That's great. And when we talk about industry academia, as you have yourself had transitions between academia, industry, and then the government, what are the foundational elements you think, like from the perspective of scientific or infrastructural or the institutional, you believe are essential for a successful translational incubation platforms building in India?
If I had to summarize in one word, it will be collaboration.
Okay.
The skill of collaboration. I see that we have a lot of training programs in lots of subjects, but not in collaboration. That is a missing piece. And at least my experience, both on the industry side and now in my current role, is the toughest skill to have is to collaborate, to figure out where we can find out the path to work together, rather than it's easy to confine to yourself and work in silo. Everybody says that we should work together, but it is those people who can cross that barriers and work together. And that's why people have been talking about industry academia for ages, but we still have distance to travel there, simply because those barriers needs to be crossed. So,
and how do you think, if we compare the industry academia or these collaborations that we're talking about, was some 30 decades ago and the past 5 years, how it has changed?
I think it has changed significantly, I must say. I think I'm very happy to say that it has changed in the right direction, I would say. But we still have a long way to go in terms of where we want to be. But definitely in the last 5 years, and I've seen tremendous support from the government. I'm very fortunate to be part of many discussions in Delhi, and all I see is the strong commitment by government.
Yes.
And which was not visible to me, when I was, not in this position.
Okay.
But I am so happy to see that there is so much push from the top, and things happen, typically that way. But government only can do, up to a point. It's really all the other stakeholders need to really come together and all that.
Okay.
So I would say we have a long way to go. But to answer your question, last 5 years, it's phenomenal.
Yes. And when we talk about collaborations, as you said, it is very important. So what do you think some of the platforms are that these young researchers, young innovators can come together and do the collaboration part?
Now, that I think we have a lot in this country that's happening. I think the young researchers really need to invest a little bit more time on what are those platforms, because government is organizing quite a few initiatives through the ministries as well as through the research labs that are funded by government. CSIR ourselves have lots of programs, where we try to bring in. I see a little bit of a gap where not everybody knows what's happening. I think one problem we have is the centralized sort of repository of information, where one-stop shop where everything is available. But I think more platforms also need to be created, and I am a believer that of the philosophy where smaller groups have larger impact.
Yes.
And so I think this should be done in clusters as much as possible, and we are trying to do in Mumbai that way at the Innovation Complex.
Yes, exactly. And when we talk about scientific innovations, especially in the field of biopharma, biosimilars, or biologics, how is your innovation complex designed to address the concept of valley of death which we experience in the biopharma, and what makes your approach different from the traditional incubator or the accelerator that we had?
Yeah, good question. So at CSIR Innovation Complex, first of all, we just got started. So
Okay.
whatever I am saying is something that we intend to set up. So it has been a year since the inauguration of the facility. So we have multiple components there in terms of how we want to accelerate the innovation efforts of the whoever comes to. So we have the incubation
Yes.
piece, where we have 24 state of the labs. They can be converted into a chemistry lab or a biology lab or any lab within the life sciences or other sector. So that's one thing, and it's located right in the middle of Mumbai. It's in Andheri West.
Yes.
If you can do a search, how many labs are actually available in the government system to be able to incubate. You will find very few in
Yeah.
Mumbai. So we are one of the few facilities
That's
that we have that. The second component is the Valley of Death that you talked about, where we are trying to create a preclinical platform accessible to startups and MSMEs and whoever is interested to be able to use those services and cross that valley
Yes.
of death. I think India needs more new drugs, NCs or NBEs, and that can only happen by filing more INDs to begin with.
Yes.
And that's what we are trying to do.
And as you already mentioned about how CSIR is helping the startups and MSMEs to right now, it is giving the launch pad, I would say, to these startups and everything. So, what do you think? During all these developments, there is always some kind of gap that has to be filled. So, which kind of gaps that you think are there and that CSIR is kind of working on to fill the gaps?
Again, an excellent question. I think, in my opinion, so first of all, it depends on case to case,
Yes.
the gaps, what kind of. But if I had to really generalize, the gaps are primarily in three areas. The first one is funding that
Yeah.
everybody talks about. And so we try to connect, the startups
Yes.
who come to us to the right, funding agencies as much as possible. And the second gap that I see is on the expertise. I think a lot
Okay.
of these, efforts go in vain, or the valley of death is created, at least in my opinion, is because you do not know the path.
Okay.
Most companies are just lost in that cloud. Once they have an asset and they want to take it to an IND filing or commercialization, they just don't know the path. And I think having access to experts who have already been through that journey
Yeah.
and not only success but also failed, so that they can share those experiences with these startups, and so that these can be productive. So that's the second aspect. Third one is, I think, that collaborative approach I talked about. I think we are trying to bring as many stakeholders as possible to the table.
Okay.
I think without that we will not be successful. This will not be successful with isolated approaches. So those are the three.
And when we talk about talent, governance, and how do we scale up a particular industrial project, or I would say any academia related project also, scaling and innovation often requires not just the infrastructure but also talent, as you already mentioned that. So, what is your perspective? Like, what are the kind of strategies are needed to attract the high quality scientific entrepreneurs in this? And also, to enable the predictive pathways towards this.
Yeah, creating the right infrastructure and the wherein a system where they can actually have easy access to
Yes.
the funding, the expertise in the specific area they are working in, and the regulatory pathways. So the whole works, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is what will make the difference, and that's what we intend to create there.
And if you talk about the private sector, particularly the industrial sector, how might your experience in, as you already had that experience, how do you think the private sector will help to overcome the challenges that we already had the conversation about?
So I think that just by saying that industry should invest or private sector, these will not take us too far. We need to find the real practical mechanisms to
Yes.
make industry part of these efforts. And I think once we figure that out, I think success, because most of the industry that I know, since I come from industry, they're very keen
Yeah.
to work with academia and government. But I don't know if there are as many platforms that can bring them together. And that's
Yes.
why I go back to my opening statement. It's all about the skill of collaboration. That
Yes.
how do people create that environment and do this. Like I said, this conference is a great example for it.
Exactly.
That there are very few conferences where I see like this. And I've seen in a panel discussion, one panel member is from industry,
Yes.
one is from academia, one from government,
Okay.
and the other from regulatory. So, and fantastic. And the other we need to have to see is the cross pollination of knowledge.
Yes.
We should not be confined to what we know in India. We need to make sure that we learn what's happening outside India. Again, I see a lot of people, companies from outside India in this conference. And this is exactly the model, I would say,
Yeah.
that to be
Wonderful.
successful.
Exactly, sir. Thank you so much. I mean, those words, more than being insightful, that was inspirational when you said the cross pollination of knowledge is something that is important. And this happens through the collaborations.
Yes.
That is the main key. And before we wrap up this whole conversation, I have quick 3 rapid fire questions for you,
Yeah.
wherein I need your instinctive answer for those. So, in one scientific platform, India must urgently invest in
Okay, since only one answer, it's gene editing.
gene editing. Okay. And one model outside India that inspires your work.
The Broad Institute in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any particular work that they are doing?
That's what they bring in, this academia industry collaboration,
Okay.
what we are talking about. They really bring in, the best.
And that is
that's the
inspirational.
model.
Okay.
It's also Fraunhofer, the other one in Germany.
Okay.
Since you said one, I picked that. Yeah.
Okay. Last but not the least, one piece of advice for the emerging translational scientists and the young innovators in India.
Always open to know more than what you already know. Collaborate more so that it will expand your horizons, and your effort should be always that what else I don't know,
Yes.
rather than focusing more on what I know, so that will lead to the journey of success. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. It was
Thank you,
wonderful conversation with you, and thank you for taking your time and coming on this podcast. I hope
I
you
am-
enjoyed the podcast too.
I did. I enjoyed a lot. Thanks, Rohini, for all the wonderful questions, and had a great time.
I
Thank
hope we do more in future.
you. I would love to.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
sir,
so
for
much.
being here.
Thank you.